hear from the voice of UTEP Athletics because of this story from earlier today. They are joining the Mountain West Conference. They are joining the Mountain West Conference effective July 1st of 2026. They'll play games starting that academic year of 26-27. We are honored to be invited to the Mountain West Conference. Their UT El Paso Vice President, Director of Athletics, Jim Center. We'll hear from the voice again of UTEP Athletics in just a moment, John Teicher. So this one at least is done.
Yeah, and good for UTEP being in the Mountain West. If this is what is best for them and competitively helps them get better, then great. I'm still confused on outside of what the TV dollars are going to be, which I guess we don't know yet. I guess they assume they're going to be better than they are in Conference USA. Why this is all better than just merging or figuring out a way to get together. But, I'm not in charge of either conference, and I remain confused as to how this is going to get them into the playoff better or do anything but set them up better. I don't know about
the playoff, but I do think that Mountain West Conference has a lot of cap room, so to speak, like you would think when it comes to signing NFL free agents.
Yeah, it also just makes more sense regionally to have some of the teams out west there that they'll be playing. I mean, because I don't think people understand how far west El Paso is. I could get to Florida quicker than I could get to El Paso. Maybe not quite that, but it's pretty close. It's not that far off. And we're right here in the middle of Texas. There's a whole big old area to get through before you get to El Paso. So they're more west than anything, and I think that's part of it. But luckily, we've got somebody who will be able to fill us in on that. I'd imagine, there's more to it than just the regionality, but that's a big deal for the Mountain West. I know this is not the most interesting round of realignment for a lot of people because it doesn't feature a lot of big brands, but it is sort of the lower, just right under the P5, kind of situating itself and how it's going to look moving forward, and the balance of teams and whatever power there is out there to be grasped, I do think is interesting as you start to look ahead in years down the line. But this is obviously a move that both sides wanted, and so now you got UTEP joining Air Force and Hawaii and Nevada and New Mexico State and Wyoming and UNLV and so on. And so, that'll be an interesting conference, and good for the Miners fans who seem to be excited about this. And for those that aren't, I don't know. We'll get more details on why this is a great move for UTEP. But, it's a lot of Texas activity, it seems like, right now, as you're hearing the rumors about Tarleton and them being contacted by the Mountain West. That's where I'm really okay, guys. I know you want Texas, but with all due respect, we're starting to really scrape when we're getting to Tarleton. And I know there are people on the show, respect the hell out of them, but you're not moving the Texas needle per se with that. Nor would you with UTEP necessarily, but I do think El Paso is a huge city. I know a lot of people who love El Paso as a travel spot. Yep. And so, good for the Miners.
Well, here's the thing. You mentioned it's as close to get to El Paso as Florida. El Paso is approximately 9 hours and 1 minute away from where we are right here. Panama City is 12 hours, and that's the furthest west city. But Mobile, Alabama, which is right there on the Alabama-Florida, basically the whatever you call it, divide, is 9 hours and 2 minutes. So it's about the same to get one way or the other. UTEP, again, with the decision, they are joining the Mountain West, and so we'll hear from their voice of UTEP Athletics in just a moment. Meanwhile, Craig brought up Tarleton State. Ross Dellinger today saying that they are in serious discussions with Tarleton. Remember, we've had their president, the AD, and football coach on, and they have been wanting to make the move. They finally got through the transition, and they are ready to go, and now you have this. And I'm not sure where this goes. I reached out to Steve Urias, but did not hear back. I saw where Matt Brown actually tweeted out that right now, the conference that Tarleton State is in, they're having athletic director meetings. So that's kind of an interesting note there, as they are, the WAC ADs are right now meeting. And Tarleton, of course, a part of that. And then this one, Gonzaga. The Big 12 had interest. They've always looked at UConn too, but Gonzaga, they're going to the Pac-12. Who said this a few weeks ago?
Brett McMurphy.
He's going to join us today at 4. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ, as they join the Pac-12. You saw the logo. Y'all ready for this? Back the Pac, and that's Gonzaga, the Bulldogs, and their tremendous men's basketball program.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to have some finality. I'm sure if you're a Gonzaga fan after the past year of a roller coaster of rumors twice over, I think dalliances with the Big 12, talks about joining that league. I'm not sure how far those ever got along, but we know that they at least kicked the tires on that, and from both sides, and then nothing to it, and then it reignited again, and then shortly after it got stamped out, and that coincided with the Big 12 and UConn reports, which turned out to be nothing ultimately as far as actual movement or offers or anything like that. So if you're a Gonzaga, it was pretty clear that you're trying to up your game a little bit, and you are an attractive basketball brand, and certainly have other sports that can fill out depending on what conference you're going to. But I think from the Big 12 point of view, everybody just cared about men's basketball. Like, that's it. Like, nobody cared about baseball or any of that stuff. It was all about basketball. But I do think as an all-sports institution, this is a really good move for Gonzaga. If you were told their fans they'd be in the Pac-12 one day, I'm sure they wouldn't have believed it necessarily. Now, it's a different Pac-12 than what you probably imagine, but I like what the Pac has done. I think they've added really quality teams, and I think this bolsters them in basketball and obviously keeps the geographic footprint all within that same part of the country. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think when you look at from top to bottom, it's not a power conference, but it is a very good non-power conference, and I don't know how much those labels will even matter moving forward, but the Pac is done as best as you could imagine, quite frankly, to refill their ranks after all of the events of the last year. And
full share and no football.
No,
so
that's right.
There you
nice.
go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really great for them.
That wasn't happening in the Big 12, I doubt.
Yeah. Well, I talked to my friend, our friend, Smoky Todd Zeidler, who used to work there, and just said, hey, Pac-12. And he's like, yeah, it's really exciting. And he said the best part is full share and no football. Like, that's great for them. I said there's going to be a lot of people that go, well, they should make them add a football team. And I said, look, unless they can be Notre Dame, small Catholic school successful, it makes no sense for them. And basically right now they would go to the Pac-12 and be like, you guys want us to have football? Here's how much it costs for you to pay us to have football. Yep. You need to build a stadium and infrastructure and all these things they don't have. And the Pac-12 didn't go to them thinking that was going to happen. So this kind of works out for everybody. Plus with San Diego State and Gonzaga in that conference, that's pretty fun to me.
Clint Moses, as a Washingtonian, he's an Oregon State fan. Mm-hmm. As a Washingtonian, I'm hyped for Gonzaga. I've seen the rise throughout the years. Back the Pac. So Clint Moses is happy about the
I think
move.
It's great. Like I said, for the Pac, I think it makes sense for all of the reasons, especially if you're getting that full share without football. I mean, that's a nice little sweetener on top of everything. So, yeah, I mean, them and San Diego State will be the headliner. Everybody else has got to get their ducks in a row when it comes to basketball to compete with those two. But that's a really nice starting point, and that's an attractive potential conference championship game on the men's side. So, yeah, I think that adding Gonzaga to the portfolio made all the sense in the world for the Pac. From a Big 12 perspective, are you guys bummed at all that they're not going to be in the Big 12?
No, because, again, it'd be, for one sport, which is great, but, the conference right now, basketball-wise, is pretty damn good.
Yeah. Without
Gonzaga, it's not like if they could just find that missing piece, they don't have a missing piece in the basketball conference. There's no missing piece.
In basketball, they have the names that some conferences have in football. And there's some of those same conferences that have names in football that also have them in basketball. But the Big 12 has top-level alpha names, tradition-rich, national championship programs. They don't have Kentucky. They don't have maybe UCLA, some of those names. UConn was a part of the mix, and there's a couple of others. I'm not trying to leave them out. But they have in basketball what anyone else would want, even if they have some names that are pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think the ACC's got something to say about that, too, with multiple programs. But, yeah, I don't care about them not being in the Big 12, not personally, attacking Gonzaga there. I'm glad they found a spot, and it was a nice step up for them, but I'm not shedding any tears over them not being the Big 12. It's fun to think about, like, this fantasy league of basketball teams, and you definitely see where Brett Yormark was coming from, but I didn't feel like it was the end-all, be-all. Like, if you didn't do this, you're screwed, or if you did do this, it's going to put you over the top. I think, it would have been fun to see, but it doesn't change my opinion overall on the league. That was fun to kick around, though.
Grand Dan, thank you for the super chat. By the way, you could always do that. You can go up to the top of the overall live chat. Grand Dan, $5 super chat. Thank you. What is the scuttle about Texas State, and where would they fit better if they made a decision? Would it be the Mountain West or the Pac?
I think for them, just name alone, they fit better in the Pac. Gonzaga, is the only one without state in their name. So, like if they want to,
they brought him in anyway.
They brought him in anyway. Maybe they're going to be Gonzaga State soon. I don't know. I think that's for Texas State to determine. I don't think either choice, if they're going to leave the Sun Belt, which again, to the point about UTEP and the Mountain West, it makes much more sense for Texas State to not have to go east as much like they would be in the Sun Belt and go west. It's a little easier, I would think, from San Marcos to go west than it is to go east, although it's not like they're in central Texas, southern part of central Texas, so it's not like they're way out like El Paso is. But, yeah, I mean, whatever works best for them and gets them the most money and most exposure, I say that. Like, I don't know if one's necessarily better than the other.
I think your best situation would probably be the Pac-12 or Pac whatever it's going to be. I just think from a brand recognition standpoint, which is why you held on to the brand name to begin with, right, was you kind of like have an automatic just slight advantage in terms of like people knowing who you are and knowing a little bit about you, even though it's a wildly different looking conference. I mean, that would be the top level because it does feel like the Pac, at least in football, is going to be the fifth best conference. When you look at the teams that they've assembled, Boise State and Wazoo and Oregon State, et cetera, and then, you flip a switch on when certain teams are good in given years. So I think that'd be like the most ideal, but I don't know what money they're being offered. And the only offer that I know they have right now is Mountain West. So here's the good news for you, and appreciate the super chat, is if you're a Texas State fan, like you're getting bumped up to some degree. Like you're not going to be where you've been. You're going to be moving up. I don't know how like high the curve is or how high the angle of upward trajectory is, but it's definitely pointing upward, not downward or not sideways if you're Texas State. So it's a good position to be in, and I'm sure they're just trying to absorb a lot of information to figure out what's the best move. But, yeah, they've got the Mountain West offer, and they're almost assuredly moving. It's just a matter of what are the others talking to them about, and I'm sure we'll hear about that very, very soon because this needs to kind of wrap up at this point.
Yeah, and it just seemed like not quite a perfect bow, but it's getting closer to that. Also, today, the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award was honored, released their Player of the Week, Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, who has had a great start to his year. He does look so much better than he did a year ago at this time. Still has some things to do. I thought that Georgia just eventually just would not let him get outside, and Alabama just did not react to that very well, but he hit the big pass to the freshman, and they beat Georgia. So Jalen Milroe is the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award National Player of the Week for week number 5 for the games that were just played.
Yeah, product of K.D. Tompkins High School, and so this is for players from or playing in the state of Texas on offense, and it's a weekly thing, and his turn was this week, and rightfully so with the way that he played, especially early against Georgia. It wasn't quite all the way through because Georgia started to finally answer back, but, man, he was sizzling hot, especially there in the beginning, and he does look immensely improved in that offense of Kalen DeBoer. So glad to see him performing the way that he is. He seems to be having a lot of fun. It seems to be very comfortable, and it certainly looks like it's working. And I'm sure it's fun to throw to guys like Ryan Williams and have them make plays for you as long as you get the ball in their hands. But, yeah, very deserved for his performance. There was a few others that had big days, but I think given the circumstances, playing a top-ranked team like Georgia and putting up the numbers that you did, that was a pretty easy choice for voters.
Also, and like you have Ashton Genty in that mix among some others.
He could make an argument, yeah.
Yeah. Now, let's go to the defensive efficiency ratings in the Big 12. Remember, John Teicher is just around the corner. He covers UTEP. He's the voice of UTEP, has been now for 4 decades. Here is how the defensive efficiency rankings are so far through the first 5 weeks of the season with Adam McClintock, college football _ professor. not a surprise. I mean, how about this, though? Colorado 3rd. Cyclones of Iowa State, BYU 1 and 2, Utah, most everybody. Houston 6, despite their struggles. And then look at that. You have Iowa State, BYU, and then Colorado has inserted itself at number 3 in the defensive efficiency rankings. I saw this even against Baylor. Even though they got fortunate with the Hail Mary, they couldn't protect Shedeur. They did against UCF. They still weren't running the ball well. They sure did well enough against UCF. They stopped the run. They got to they grew up in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the more interesting things, though, and shows you kind of the way that some of the teams that thought they were going to be better have been so wonky, is if you look at the bottom, TCU, not surprisingly, at 16th in defensive efficiency ratings. West Virginia started out, not great in that as well, 15th. And, Baylor at 9th, I think they would expect to do a little bit better. This is also, as Adam says, not adjusted for schedule strength yet. And will fluctuate once they play more and more Big 12 games, because not everybody's played the same amount of that yet. So we'll see. Offensively, on the other side of this, when you look at the offensive efficiency ratings, some of this is like almost completely flipped upside down when you see like TCU number 2 in offensive efficiency, number 16 in defensive efficiency. But Iowa State, and one of the reasons they're so good, number 1 in defense, number 5 in offense right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
in the Big 12. That's
yep.
balance right there. UCF number 6 and number 14, out of whack, right? Out of whack. You can't do that. And Kansas State, number 10 and like number 3 or number 5, a little bit more out of whack. Teams got to find a little more balance. Kansas in the bottom in both, though, and they've had wheels off.
Yeah, Arizona, the number 1 offensive efficiency team right now with TCU and Tech. Not a surprise. Cincinnati has really been good offensively with Sorsby. He was a part of the nominations for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, having himself a very nice start for Coach Satterfield and company. Let's see, Garrett. Let's go now. We'll do the Super League discussion later on. It's hypothetical, but I saw a couple of comments that were made about what would happen if SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey kind of pushed back on this. We'll get to that. That's like a segment.
Who?
That will the SEC commissioner.
Boo!
Yeah, him.
Boo!
How about this note? Kirby Smart, when he loses, a coach that beats him. This is from our guest at 4 o'clock, Brett McMurphy. He comes up with some amazing nuggets. So if you beat Kirby Smart, which not many people have done, DeBoer on Saturday was the 12th coach to beat him. 5 of those are out of coaching. 6 of them fired from the school that beat Georgia, like where they were when they beat Georgia. Here are the 6 who are fired, who are no longer at the school and when they beat Georgia. Hugh Freeze, Tom Herman, Butch Jones, Gus Malzahn, Derek Mason, and Jim McElwain. Those are the ones who beat him, and they're no longer at those schools. They're in college football, and, of course, we know some of them are head coaches. The others who beat him but are now out of coaching. Nick Saban retired, okay? Dan Mullen fired. Ed Orgeron fired. Will Muschamp fired. And Paul Johnston at Georgia Tech was at Navy, retired. So 2 of those 5. 2 of the 12, well, DeBoer counts 3 of the 12. 2 of them left on their own, and 1 of them is still coaching. At the same school in which he beat Kirby Smart.
Yeah, it's hard to do. And really, I'm starting to wonder if he just gets locked up by the jerseys on Alabama.
He's what is he, 1-6 or something like that, or maybe more than that against that. They're hard to beat. I mean, it's like there's certain schools that just have you. Barry Switzer owned Tom Osborne. There are certain people that own certain programs that when they're in the top 5 or top 10, and Georgia is still good. They did win the national championship game during a year in which they had lost in the SEC. So, they do have those 2 national titles back-to-back up until 22 and 23. 23, last year when Michigan did win it.